This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Howdy, there he is. You know, I said that about everybody except Manny. Of course, you would play football and you'd be healthy and you'd knock the shit out of everybody.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
I put people on their butts, man.
Isn't it? That part is so true, right? I mean, like we talk about players like, oh, this guy's soft. This guy breaks down constantly. We wouldn't last 5 effing minutes.
No. I played football a little bit growing up as a kid, and I preferred baseball. Too much work in football, man.
Yeah. No, I got to the high school level, and I just said, you know, Waikiki and the beaches and 81st Street Beach and all, you know, like because that's where Hialeah, Miami Lakes people went. And I said, you know, that sounds a lot better in the afternoon than me sweating my ass off in practice. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I got out of it quickly, bro. But yeah, no, it's just funny how we talk about that stuff. All right, so let's get into a little Kane stuff. Dude, the commits just continue to roll in. Tommie Kinsler following Malik Bryant now. Talk to me about all these guys and thank you guys as you're taking the tally. What is it now? They have 8 4-stars and 5 5-stars in the class. This guy is actually a 3-star. But wait a minute, now that Miami signs you, don't you get an extra star nowadays?
Right, you get a boost.
Yeah.
I know from talking to a couple people, not just at Miami or Florida where they were, you know, recruiting him. I know from different evaluators that they really think the kid's very underrated. I think he's ranked in the 900 somewhere, according to the 247, which is the one I use because you can't go by all of them. You'll get eight different results, right, with all the recruiting services. But he is a solid guy who can play anywhere on the line. I think they kind of compare him a little bit to DJ Scaife, and DJ Scaife's been a guy who started over 40 games for Miami. He was higher rated coming out of high school down here in South Ridge, but he's a kid that can play on both sides of the line, you know, offense and defense and all over the offensive line. So I think eventually
he's more of an athlete is what it is right now.
Well, no, he's a lineman. He's been a lineman. I'm just saying, you know, he could play on either side. Like he's that kind of an aggressive player. I mean, to me, he's a run blocker and he's a run stuffer. Like he could be either or. But I think, you know, Miami's bringing him in essentially.
Mammoth.
Yeah, really.
330 already, bro, in high school.
Yeah, and I think
Are you kidding me?
I think that what they like about him most is what I said, which is he can play both sides, which tells you he's, you know, ferocious. He's kind of just nasty. And Ocala Trinity Catholic's always been a good program. They've always produced kids that go on to play college ball from there. So he comes from a good program. And then as far as Malik Bryant, you know, he's an elite kid, man. He's top 100, you know, linebacker, a guy that you know, I think played with his hand in dirt in the ground as a freshman. He had like something like 14 or 15 sacks or whatever as a freshman, you know, almost led his team to a state championship. Then he goes to IMG Academy for 2 years, which IMG is basically, you know, pre-college, right? Football, essentially. It's what it is. It's just an academy, a football academy, essentially. And, you know, he went there and he started as well. So this is a guy who's been starting 3 years of high school. Now he goes back to Orlando Jones, where he's going to try to lead his team to a state championship this year. And just super, you know, pass rusher, can cover. Not the best cover guy that Miami has among the linebackers. I think the Popo Aguirre kid is much more adept at that in terms of coverage, but is a guy that, to me, he's just a defensive weapon. And I was on a Zoom call with him a couple of nights ago, me and a couple of other reporters, and I asked him, I said, you know, how have Miami coaches told you they're going to use you? And he said, like Micah Parsons over with the Cowboys. So he turned out pretty good, right? So
I think he can play. Maybe might be able to make it.
So if he's Micah Parsons in a couple years, then you know, huge win for Miami, and whatever role they use him ultimately, whether it's a pass rusher or, you know, standing there in the middle and you know, stuffing the run and being a guy who's fast enough to get fast guys down. He's definitely got some speed on him.
Yeah, I loved Micah coming out of Penn State. That was just one of those dudes you could tell had werewolf in him, man. It's It reminds me a lot of what I just saw with the Panthers. They needed a werewolf in the locker room, and they finally got one in Kachuk. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it was just one of those things. Oh, by the way, I don't know if since I can't I couldn't ask you this question because you're not on a pro beat. You're on the college beat. But I was just
Right.
having some fun with this question a couple of days ago. Let me see make sure I have my list. I don't want to screw it up. Who's the guy that has the most swag in South Florida? That is the alpha with the most swag.
Well,
Jimmy Jimmy
you did
Butler, Tyreek Hill. I did ask you this?
you did, and
Oh, I did. Okay.
and I told you Jimmy,
Oh,
but
you did.
I love the question because it is a very important one.
Okay.
I just think Tyreek Hill. I mean, look, he's a super speedy receiver. He's got great swag. I just give Jimmy the nod because he leads his team. It's hard for Tyreek to do that as a receiver every single week, right? Like he'll be effective and change defenses and cause opponents to have to game plan for him. But my point is, he doesn't have the ball in his hands. Somebody's got to get it to him. So in Jimmy's case, he's got the ball in his hands and he's got control.
All right.
So that's why I give him the edge.
So now this leads me to the question I wanted to ask you because that's what I was going to try to set you up with. I think the front office of the Miami Dolphins knew they had a couple of dogs inside that locker room, but they probably needed more. Like X is an alpha, but he's not a vocal alpha.
Right.
And so they figured they needed a couple guys, and they went. And I think specifically, not only because they're great players, but I think Teron Armstead and Tyreek Hill were brought in because he needed a couple of extra alphas in that locker room to kind of help out because football is different. Football really is not led by just one alpha because there's so many fractions in the locker room. You need several guys. And a couple of days ago when I was there, I asked McDaniel, how do you go about captains and how do you use them as a vehicle to connect with the players? And so here's the question I have for you. We know Tyler Van Dyke, obviously, on that list as one of the alphas, but he can't handle the whole team. So who's the 3, 4, 5 guys that you know or you think that Mario Cristobal is going to lean on as alphas on that team to be the leaders for that team and be the conduits to him to get a feel for, hey, what's going on with this group on defense, this group on special teams, this group on offense, those kind of guys. And the head coach usually has some captains that'll relay the feelings of the team or whatever's going on or those kind of things. So who are those guys outside of the obvious Tyler Van Dyke?
It's a great question. I think, you look at the offensive line, which is obviously very, very important to Mario, right? I mean, that's where his focus is all the time. Zion Nelson is not one of those alpha vocal leaders. He's just a very athletic, super talented, left tackle. Usually it's the center on the offensive line that leads it because he's the one calling out.
Casey Jones was that kind of guy.
Right.
Blomberg was that kind of guy. Yeah.
I think Ja'Kai Clark can be that guy now, right? Because Corey Gaynor was the center for several years. Corey Gaynor gets hurt. He takes over in the middle of the season last year. He was already starting on the offensive line since his freshman year. He was a guard. Now he's moved over to center. So I think, if you were going to ask me, who would be that guy this year, I would think it'd be Ja'Kai Clark, just because he's already in his 4th year. He's not a baby anymore. He's the experienced guy. So I think he probably feels comfortable in that role. And he did that in high school. I know that he was that kind of player in high school. Receiver, I think Keyshawn Smith, he's the one returning starter. He's a kid from California who, is he an alpha? I don't know that he's an alpha, but he's certainly, he could be the leader of that room just because he's been experienced and he's got, he's not scared to talk, right? He's not afraid to voice his opinion. The running back room, it's kind of like whoever emerges, and we honestly don't know. I mean, it should be Jalen Knighton, but
but he could be just a great player. He may not be a leader. He may not be a guy that is rattling cages. The interesting part when we talk about this head coach. Mario played on a line where several of those guys could have been leaders, including Mario. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's interesting.
Different era, brother. Just different era kids.
Because Mario comes from a time where I could have found 3 guys just on his position that were freaking studs in the locker room.
I think part of this is youth because so many of their best players are the youngest players. Oh, they're the guys who are going into their second
We
year.
don't know them, right?
And it's hard to go into a locker room and be vocal when you haven't done anything. Now, a guy like James Williams on defense at safety, without question, he is an alpha. He is a guy who now going into his second year,
He's that guy,
right? You don't have Bubba Bolden or some of these older guys who are like, hey, young, and like they're gone now. So it's his room, right? Him and Cam Kitchens are the two guys. Him and Avante Williams as well. Those three guys. But I think without question, James Williams is one of those guys. And then linebacker, you've got the transfer Caleb Johnson who came over from UCLA. It's hard to come in and as a transfer when you haven't been around much. But hopefully he's the guy because he's a fifth-year guy. One of the older guys in that room. Maybe he comes in and takes over, him or Keontra Smith. And then I'd say on the defensive line, Leonard Taylor is without question one of those, just like James Williams, those five-star guys who dominate at the high school level and then come and they have it in them naturally. But again, he's entering his second year. And there's some older guys around him. So I don't know if he fits into that role. But those were the guys I would identify as sort of the alpha males. And I would say Tyreek Stevenson for sure, because he already came in last year from Georgia, started and was one of the better cornerbacks in the ACC. So I would say in the cornerback room, no question, it's Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah, those Denzel Perrimans, those Ed Reeds. It's so important to have some of those vocal leaders, those guys that can take over, a locker room. De'Aaron King was that, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, I think Tyler's that guy for sure. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, he's the leader of the offense, hands down.
But you made the best point because they're so young. We're in the process of developing those kind of guys because they haven't been through adversity yet. They haven't gone through the successes yet to go through then the valleys of it to then be able to say, okay, this is what we've got to do to get back on track. And I think that's Mario's thing now. Not only is he developing a culture and a team, but he's got to now start to develop a legacy of leaders from one group to another every 2, 3, 4 years where they hand the baton off to that next guy. And I think that's what starts now. It starts now with all that.
And I would say that they've certainly identified guys in this recruiting class that fit that bill. These elite 5-star and 4-star kids. I think they are more of that, sort of alpha mindset for sure. And even the kids in this most recent class, Cyrus Moss, for instance, he's going to be a true freshman this year. He may only play on third downs. He may only play, late in the year whenever some of the other guys are out with injuries. But I think going into 2023, 2024, those are the guys that'll be looked at as the leaders because, they have it in them. They're not devoid of that kind of stuff.
What are you working on over at The Athletic so folks can check you out, my friend?
Yeah, I put out a couple podcasts this week. One with Andrew Farelli from South Florida Express talking about recruiting, and then another one with our Gators beat writer Alan Taylor because Miami's been kicking Florida's ass in recruiting a lot of these head-to-head battles for these elite kids. And so you've probably been on Twitter and seen these little memes and stuff of Mario, his head on some character beating up a Billy Napier character. So those have been going around. I'll have a roundtable that'll come out, an article with my buddy Alan Taylor, who covers the Gators.
Nothing against Billy Napier, but you look at Mario Cristobal and you look at Billy Napier. I want to play for Mario Cristobal. I'm just sorry. I just
different animal, man.
I look at Mike Norville and I look at Mario Cristobal and I want to play for Mario Cristobal, bro. I'm just
and it's been a long time since Miami's had that guy in charge because they weren't beating the Gators for kids and they weren't beating the Seminoles for kids, and so
weren't beating Alabama either, by the way.
Right, or right, getting kids, taking kids from Ohio State, right?
Yeah, I know. Malik, what was it? Malik chose Miami over Alabama, Clemson. What was it? Florida, and there was one more, wasn't it?
There was I think he visited Maryland as well because Loxley used to be an assistant in Alabama. So
holy shit, it's okay, great. This is awesome. Now you're beating the real schools for talent, and that's what I want to see. Mm-hmm. We edged Air Force and Wake Forest and Eastern Connecticut for this wide receiver. Yay.
It's a different animal, brother. And by the way, camp, of course, starts a week from today. There will be some media events, and I think you asked me on the last show about Canes Fest. Literally, like 2 hours after that is when they announced it.
I saw that.
I didn't want to put any information out at the time until they had, so because God forbid you say something they don't want you to put out there. But yes, they were working on something, and obviously it came back after a couple of years of COVID. So
Why not in Fort Lauderdale? By the way, what happened?
well, I think they're just doing it at the facility, right? Like it's essentially just making it easy for the players because they'll be practicing, and I think fans who do go to Canes Fest,
expenses, yes.
yeah. So it'll be easy to for them to
Got to
watch.
rent buses, got to rent a driver, gas,
Right.
all that stuff.
And
yeah.
Mario's about the work, bro. He doesn't care about all, like, to him. Okay, you want to come watch? You want to come get autographs from these kids? Come sit in the hot sun where we are here in our facilities, and then go inside to the AC, so the kids can sign autographs. So just simple. And I would say, something else. I had a conversation last night with somebody. I know the ACC. They're having meetings every week about this realignment thing. I know we didn't get too much into it, and I don't know if you got to go soon, but I would say that we
run this bitch, baby. We do whatever we want here. Okay? So go ahead, man. Knock yourself out.
I was just gonna say I had a conversation with someone last night who basically said that every week the ACC leaders and administrators are getting together to talk about realignment and what they're going to do to try to sweeten the deal with the ESPN, and I think the original concept that I reported right when UCLA and USC took off for the Big Ten, that story that came out later that night that I was a part of, as far as like redistributing funds in certain schools making more money than others, is probably the first step of what they'll do here to try to sweeten things up for schools like Clemson and potentially Miami if they start winning big, right? If the Hurricanes start winning big, they'll probably end up getting a bigger take of the pie versus equal distribution. So I think that's something to watch for. Obviously Notre Dame, the ACC would love to convince them to play here, but I think the ACC is also keeping its eyes open to potentially other teams that could bring them up to 16 that are worth the value. So
let me ask you something. Why doesn't Ruiz just pay the
exit fee?
The exit fee. Listen to me. Now listen to me. Hold on a second. John, I'm not wasting all your money here, okay? I'm going Mickey Arison style.
Right.
Follow me on this, okay? Because most people forget about this shit. It's like they forget about Rick Sanchez hanging around with San Pedro back in the day. Listen, people forget about this. Mickey Arison said, "Oh, wait a minute, you guys are having some issues. Okay, no problem. I'll build the arena, and then you pay me back $6 million a year for the next. I think it was like 30 years. So 6 times 30. I think that's what the arena costs or something. If I remember correct, I'm going off my memory, which is not bad actually." For an old fart like myself, but I think it was something. Can you look it up? Yeah, you're already doing it. Can you look up how Mickey Arison did? But I think it was something like that. He paid for the arena because they would have to go through the voting and all that, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll approve it." He goes, "Okay, look, I'll build it, but then we agree that you're going to pay me back like I think it's $6 million a year for 30 years, and then they pay him back for that arena." Okay, so what's the exit fee? 150, 200, 250 million? How much is it?
I mean, the problem is the contract's through 2036, and the rough estimates that I've heard, it would be over $300 million.
Okay,
so you do it right now.
So Ruiz pays $300 million. They get out. They get into the SEC. They cut the new deal, and then the $100 million that they get every year, they give Ruiz back $10 million every year for the next 25, 30 years. He gets his money back. He's a billionaire. He's fine with it, and he can use that money if he wants to give back into the whole thing. Could you do something like that?
You could, but here's the key sticking point in all of this, and this is something.
See, John, I had you getting your money back. Okay,
you could.
I had you getting your money back. See, I'm helping you out.
You could, and it would be a tremendous commitment from John Ruiz. These millionaires and billionaires, they'll become that because they're just giving away money too. So 300 million is a lot of money. But I would say this. I think the key sticking point in this for Miami fans to remember is ESPN
By the way, under a 97 construction agreement,
Go
the
ahead.
county gave away a $38 million piece of land so Arison could erect a $213 million venue, plus it okayed a $6.4 million annual subsidy for
Wow.
operating the arena for the next 30 years. How good am I, bro?
You are a badass, brother. You are a badass. My memory is not that good. Not that
Okay.
good
I
to
tell you,
remember
6
those
years,
details.
30, it was 6.4. How about that, baby?
Yeah, you were money. You were
How
money.
about that? But that's what I'm talking about. Something like that maybe could work. John, what
It
do you think,
could.
John? What do you think, John? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish.
I think, look, it's through 2036, and the key sticking point I was told last night was the fact that ESPN owns the rights, and so you can't really go anywhere unless ESPN is cool with it. Like, it's that kind of a behemoth here to fight. So
But
the SEC,
don't they own the SEC rights too?
they do, but here's the thing: they also own the ACC rights, and so it depends. It depends on what ESPN ultimately values, right? The sticking Miami in the SEC make it that much more sexy and exciting, or does keeping them in the ACC that needs the ratings better business for ESPN?
Miami, Auburn, Miami, LSU, Miami, Georgia, Miami, Alabama. Oh no, baby, let's go. Let's go
Well,
to the
here's one thing I
Miami,
think.
Florida. Let's go, man. Come
Here,
on.
here's one thing I can tell you.
That's Halle Berry sexy.
Well, but here's what they could do also, okay? And right now there's 9 conference games in the SEC, 8 in the SEC and the ACC rather.
Mhm.
They could just set up those TV matchups and just have these teams, the ACC and SEC, do crossover games in the non-conference, and just create those TV matchups that way without having to move. So
But
yes,
those are only few and far between every year. It's only going to be one, maybe two. I doubt you even do two, because
well,
if you're playing your ACC schedule, I doubt you're going to play
but
two SEC teams
but
too on
here's
top
the
of
issue.
all that. But if you're playing an SEC schedule, you could play 3 or 4 of those beauties every year, and that's
Well, yes,
pretty
but
sexy.
I'm just saying as an alternative to Miami going to the SEC, right? Keeping them in the ACC, which I think right now they're fine with, because again, the gap is not that big yet. There's time before it gets there where it's 70, 80, 90 million dollars in difference.
Right.
And I think that they believe that ESPN is going to work with them to sweeten the pie. So there is something's going to happen at some point here, and probably
Yeah,
at the end of the season.
but it's not so much about sweetening the pie. It's about strengthening your conference. It's about getting better
Right.
teams in there, bro.
But if
Because
there's no
that's
better teams out there, I mean, the thing is, who do you add to the ACC right now? Right. And that's the thinking. It's not right now. The ACC is not thinking about splitting apart. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, how do we raise our profile to make more
hey, let
money?
me get lazy. Notre Dame.
Besides
Yeah,
Notre
no,
Dame, I'm
I
saying,
know. That's what I was. That's why I was being facetious, because
yeah.
outside of Notre Dame, it's like, okay, who's left now? Who do you really want from those other 3 conferences that aren't, or 2 conferences that aren't the Big Ten and SEC? Because you're not going to pull any of them from those. So it's going to be from the Pac-12 or 10 or 8 or whatever's left, and the
Pac-10. No, I think it is. Yeah.
big 4, 6, 8. What's left of it? I don't know what's
The
left
Big
of it.
12. Well,
The Big
they
12.
just added those 4 teams, right? BYU and
Oh yeah,
Cincinnati and UCF and all those. So
BYU's a powerhouse, bro. That would have been like, people don't realize.
well, it's
These
all
people have
about the
their own
TV eyeballs.
network and all that stuff. But BYU's got a hell of a following, man.
Yeah. And
Uh,
our
it
Andy
doesn't fit
Staples.
the ACC, but that would have been good money to bring in. In other words,
Andy Staples did a study of the TV ratings from, I think, 2015 to 21. How many teams drew more than 1 million viewers? And I think Miami is 5th on the list with 22 games that had over 1 million viewers, because that's what's considered profitable, right? Over
right?
1 million views. And I think Clemson, Florida State were 1 and 2, and then I think it was Oregon, Washington, and then Miami in terms of non-SEC, non-Big Ten schools. So obviously Oregon and Washington are it, because they're the only 2 teams that, in my mind, make the ACC better. But
Yeah.
are they, like, how do they fit into that mold, and this whole thing about traveling and the other sports? So I don't know what the ACC does, though. But my point here,
Oregon, Washington, Utah. Is Utah moving?
no, the Utah's still in the Pac-12 12.
Oh, then
they're staying
I'd take Utah, bro. Utah beat Oregon twice last year. Utah,
Right.
Utah's one of those programs. You don't go taking
Well,
them lightly or anything like that. They'll smack you in the mouth, dude. They're
Well,
not that bad. They're
no,
pretty
they're
decent.
not. They're not. But the Big 12 is closer in geographically, and I would say that the Big 12 is probably the next beyond the other two conferences, the SEC and Big 10. I would say the Big 12 right now is positioned to be the third best.
Plus, Mario gets to get revenge on Utah for beating him twice.
that would be good for.
So now he'll go.
Mario.
See, now I got real players. You bastard! I crushed your ass. Beat
We'll
Utah
see.
42-10, and then you beat me with some ducks.
I think Utah's got a chance to get to the playoff this year. I'll tell you that. I think that they.
Sure.
I think I would make them that fourth team that makes it after the two SEC and the Big 10 champ, which will be Ohio State. So, yeah, I think that's the playoff this year. But anyway, man, it's interesting, and I'll tell. And I guess more than anything is for the listeners.
Pass that idea on to Ruiz.
I will.
I
guess the bigger thing is just so people know, yes, things are happening. There are conversations being had by ACC leaders. So
there. I always tell people there's a lot of bad getting old. Your body's breaking down, all that stuff. But you have some perspective, and history is in your head, and so I just say, Ruiz, go Mickey Harrison style, baby.
Just do it, baby.
Just do it, man. Just get us into the SEC. All right, Manny, what are you working on in the Athletic so folks can check you out, my friend?
Yeah, just what I was saying. There's going to be a couple of depth chart breakdowns. Camp starts on Friday. That'll be coming out next week. And my little roundtable with our Florida beat writer, that'll be coming out this weekend. So there's plenty to read. And follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. You, sir, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you as always. All right, I'll take care, brother.
You got it. There you go. The great Manny Navarro. And remember, Caneswear, you order online over $99, you will get free shipping at caneswear.com. Go visit them at 2511 South University Drive in Davie. Great people.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.